everyone. Today we are going to be talking with Kelsey, who is a narrator. She's got really cool videos on Instagram. So if you haven't followed her there, be sure to check out her videos behind the scenes of being a narrator. So let's hop into this interview. And if you're new here, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe. We talk about writing on this channel, and I love doing interviews with people in the publishing realm. And so if that sounds like fun, be sure to hit the subscribe and give a like so other people find this content too. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this interview, Kelsey. It's so exciting to meet you, virtually.
Yes.
I just have to let you know, like, I found you on Instagram and I was like, I loved your videos that you did, like your little reels where you're like, basically like how you said the sentences, like you're like, I didn't say that, and then I didn't say, and like the emphasis on the different words. And I'm like, wow, that really does make a difference. Like, making sure the narrator like does that. That's crazy.
There's so many times that I'll be narrating and I'll stop myself and be like, no, you emphasized the wrong word. That means something very different than what you were intending to say. Right. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I kind of binge watched those videos. I was like, oh, she's good. She's good.
Thank you.
Okay. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your narrating? And
of course.
How you started?
I'm Kelsey Navarro. That's the name I narrate under. And I got into narration back in like 2017. So I had always wanted to get into voiceover. I remember going to my first Comic-Con in San Diego in like 2006 and sitting in a panel and being like, oh my God, I want to do this. But then, fast forward many years later, I had finally hit a point where I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. So I ended up paying for voiceover lessons. And while I was waiting for my demo to be finished, I ended up discovering ACX, the Audible Creator Exchange, and audiobooks. And I had the equipment, I was ready to go. And so I just started auditioning. And I think I have done in total 3 VO jobs in all the years from me starting. And it's all been audiobooks instead. And so it was not the plan, but I was so happy.
And you're enjoying it and you absolutely love it.
Yes. It's good. I mean, I read for a living. It is the dream.
Oh, wonderful. That makes me so happy. And it makes a difference when you're doing what you love for your daily job, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And do you enjoy reading outside of work too, then, or?
When I can, yes. And I still buy books. Those are 2 different hobbies, reading books and getting books.
Right. They are.
I still buy books and I try. It takes me so much longer because I'm usually reading the books that I have to narrate and then I read them again when I narrate them. So I'm reading a lot of books twice. Yeah, it's usually only twice because I have to prep it, which requires you to read it at first and then reading it for the performance.
Oh, sure. Okay. What kind of books do you like narrating the most? What would you say are your favorites?
My favorite for sure is romance and then nonfiction self-help. And I love YA too. It has like a very special place in my heart, but romance is definitely my just favorite. It was what I was reading mostly before I got into narration and what I was listening to audiobook wise before I got into actually doing audiobooks myself. So
that's awesome.
Romance is definitely my favorite.
When it comes to romance, are there certain types of romance that you like doing more than others? Because like there's many different kinds, like, sweet, steamy, rom-com.
Yeah, I narrate everything in the romance genre from that like sweet fade to black all the way up to like erotica. And I don't have a pseudonym. Well, Kelsey Navarro is my pseudonym, but all my books are under that. And so I narrate all of it, but I think my like bread and butter is contemporary romantic comedy. Like that is my favorite to listen to. Okay. And my favorite to perform. So.
Oh, sure. That's wonderful. I love that. Okay. And then, so if you were to describe your narration style, I always like asking narrators this question. What are 5 descriptive words that you would use?
Oh, okay.
Sorry to make it whip out the hard ones first, right?
5 descriptive words for my narration style. I would say For my most common narration style, it's natural,
Okay.
quirky. Um, God, it's hard. So okay, so we said natural, quirky, genuine, fun, and what else? No, bright. Let's go with that. I
Okay.
think that's yeah.
Yeah, I think that you picked very good words. I think that all those work really well. From what I've heard of your style, I agree. That all sounds really good. Then so when it comes to reading, like if you can think of like your number one top book that you've read across all time and all genres, what is your favorite book? If you could pick one.
That I've performed.
It can be one that you've performed, or it can be
Oh,
one
just
that
okay.
you just loved reading.
Yeah.
Either or, you can take it how you want it.
My favorite probably book of all time that has stuck with me the longest in my life was Ella Enchanted.
Oh,
Um,
yep.
that is, oh, I mean, I've reread it so many times. I have my original, like, worn out copy with like the sections that I like to reread, like
Cute.
all
Yeah,
set aside. So yeah,
that was a good
I'm one of
book.
those monsters that dog-eared my favorite book, but like,
I used to not, but let me tell you, as I've been reading more and more, I do,
Mhm.
because it's just so much easier. Then you can go back and you can find the pages that you want to read again, as you said. So yeah, I totally get that. What process do you follow when narrating an author's book? So I guess like what's the process from step one to
Yeah.
the final step? If you can share a
Well,
little bit about that with us.
yeah, it depends on where I'm getting the book from. So if I'm working directly with the author or if it's
Okay.
through a publisher or something like that. But either way, once all the contracts deals are set together, I'll get the manuscript. And if I'm doing the book by myself, then I don't have to collaborate with my co-narrator.
Oh,
So
okay.
then if it's just me, then cool. Depending on when the book is scheduled, I will prep it. Usually I'm in a perfect world, I'll prep it like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, but I'm usually like the week prior, I'm reading the book before I perform it.
Yep.
Um, and so when I read, I don't annotate my manuscript.
Okay.
I used to when I first started, and then I found it super distracting as
Okay.
I went along. And so now I usually keep a separate like Google Doc with all the characters' names and their descriptions. And that's how I remember and like make note of who's
Cool.
who and how to remember doing their voices.
Hmm.
Sometimes if there's a ton of characters, like it's a fantasy or something like that, I'll actually save little voice snippets of those characters, or
Oh,
cozy mystery. Like that's
okay.
another one where there's a ton of characters that kind of pop up in later
Right.
books and you're like, who was that person's neighbor? Did I already voice them or not? Um,
Yep. I'm sure
so
that's
I'll
difficult.
oh, yeah. And so that I'll save that. Most of the time I can remember the acting decisions I made based on my notes, but if
Okay.
there's too many characters, it's easier for me to, just save
Uh-huh.
a snippet of it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, when it comes to the week of actually narrating it, I actually split time in the booth because my husband is also a narrator.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Okay, cool.
yeah, this is our booth that
I
we
love it.
share.
It looks very
Yeah.
professional.
And he works in the morning and
Okay.
then I work in the afternoon in the booth. So
Wow.
yeah, so then like right now, this is my window of time in the booth.
Okay.
So he's with my daughter downstairs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so then I will work if I can go live on TikTok while I'm recording the manuscript. Like if I have permission to do that, I will.
Okay.
I can't do that if the book is too spicy,
Right.
because I don't want to get in trouble on TikTok.
Right.
And so, uh, and I tend to do a lot of romance, so can't always go live.
Yeah.
But
I get
yeah,
that.
and then I'll record, and when the book is all done, I'll upload the files to either my editor or to whoever is the production team.
Okay.
And then usually anywhere from a week to a couple months later, I'll get back all my corrections. So all
Okay.
the things that I said incorrectly, which I post about on Instagram and TikTok also.
I saw some of those and I'm like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, they're all real. And so
That's
I
awesome.
re-record all the fixes. I send those back, and then they will put it all in, and that the book is done. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Nice. And then about how long does that take? Like about how long week
Yeah,
wise do you think?
it depends. So right now, because my husband and I work kind of like a split schedule, I can
Yep.
do about a book a week, depending on the length. Sometimes it takes me like up to 2 weeks, just because when you can be in a booth all day for 8 hours recording, you can get a lot more done. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it is very dedicated, focused time when I'm in here. So
Right.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
depends on how long the book is. Cause like I just had one that was supposed to take about 5 hours when it was done, but
Mhm.
it'll be closer to 8 by the time I'm done.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh man. Well, that's awesome. And then, so you were saying your co-narrator, is that your husband?
It can be.
Okay,
So
cool.
we've done several books together and we're trying to do more, but
Yep.
we have a lot actually coming out because we have a 3-book series that we're doing that's up for pre-order. The first book is up for pre-order. I'm actually
Okay.
recording that at the end of this week. And
Cool.
then we have several more series that we're doing together, which I'm really excited because
Oh, cool.
he's been trying to break into romance for a while. And
Okay.
it's
So he
yeah.
does the guy and you do the girl.
Mhm.
And so when you guys do the recordings for that, I've always wondered, like, do you guys do them separately or have you guys sat in the same room and then like you're reading it to each other, or how
So
do you
there's
do
two
it?
different kinds of partnered audiobooks. So there's
Okay.
dual, where it's the female reads the female point of view chapters and does all the voices, and then the male does the male POV chapters and does all the voices.
Yep.
And then there's duet, where all the female are voiced by the female narrator, even if it's in the male's chapters, and then vice
Okay.
versa. Like I'm recording one right now with Teddy Hamilton, and we're both
Okay.
recording separate. So they're just going to split it
Oh,
all together. But he and I have like logged in on Zoom before and recorded together for certain scenes.
oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it can go both ways. You can also go into the studio and record at the same time with a co-narrator, but
Yep.
especially with COVID, it's like happened so much less frequently. So
Sure, I'm sure. That is
yeah.
crazy though. That is really cool and everything. Wow. I mean, there's so much that goes into it that, like, when you're just enjoying the audiobook, you're just enjoying the story, but like, and you don't think about all these little tiny things that you guys, the narrators, have to deal with and, make magic happen so that the story is just, beautiful in our ears.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we don't want you to have to think about that stuff. That's the whole
Right.
point. Like you shouldn't hear, background noises and things
Yep.
like that. It should be just about the story for you. So
Right. Yep. Okay. And then I always like to ask narrators this question too. So like, do you do accents at all?
yes, yes, I do. I have several that I can do for like main characters, like British RP. I can do
Okay.
Irish. I can do Russian, and then Southern,
Cool.
like different regions of the South too, because it's all different depending on where you are. And then I'm generally uh, general American is like the main thing, is
Yep.
with the focus on like the West Coast, because there's
Oh,
even specific words that you say differently regionally. So like if the
oh yeah.
character is supposed to be from New York, but they don't want any sort of accent, I still at least try to say, you know, all the words the way that I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
And then I can do a lot more accents for like just sub characters,
Mm.
just supporting, where they've got a line or two here and there. So
Okay.
yeah, I love accents.
Perfect.
They're
That's
fun.
awesome. I always like asking that because it just amazes me sometimes when I'm like listening to an audiobook where it's like this girl narrator does like, what is it? Like, oh my gosh, a Russian accent and then a British accent and then an American girl. And it's like, how? How? Like
Practice. Oh my
I would
gosh.
not be a good narrator when it comes to accents because like, yeah, put another shrimp on the Barbie. It's not very real sounding, let me tell you. So yeah, or
Yeah.
good dynamite. Yeah, it's not very good. So yeah.
It's a skill though, and it's tough. Like and there are some people that are so incredible at it, and
Yeah.
it amazes me because I'm decent, I think. And there are some people that I'm like, I don't know how you do it. I don't understand.
Yeah. It's magical. It's honestly magical. So it's just like keep up the good work. It's exciting.
Yeah.
when it comes to, not being an American, a non-American and non-British born author, if they're interested in narrating their own book, but they're kind of concerned about their accent because they might have a little bit more of an accent, what would you recommend for them if they want to narrate their own book?
Well, I would say it depends on who the character is. So if the character has the same accent as the author, then yeah, absolutely. Why not? Like,
Okay.
that's totally fine. If it's supposed to be like an American character and the author is, say, from Australia or something like that,
Yep.
it's hard because I don't want to say, you can't do it. But there is options that you could meet with a coach to do accent practice or accent reduction.
Oh,
That
interesting.
is an option. People will say that to me that, oh, I would love to be a narrator, but I'm too Southern or I'm too whatever. And it is a stepping stone for you, but it's not impossible. So
Okay.
you can get accent reduction training or just training to practice speaking in a whatever accent you're looking for. And
Yep.
it's just you learning that accent. And then you
Okay.
can narrate that way.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, you think about all the British actors who narrate for BBC, how excellent their American accents are because
Yeah.
they have to learn it. So
Oh, yeah.
you can do that. It would just take a little more work, but I would say if that's something that they really, really want to do and
Yeah.
they're willing to invest in it, then go for it.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. That was really good advice. And so when it also comes to like, say, like indie author or some other author wants to narrate their own book, what do you have advice for them on where they could start or what they could look at or whatnot, since you're the pro?
I mean, I would recommend that if you do not have any kind of acting background,
Yep.
like if it's something that you're just interested in because you like the idea of narrating your own book, but you don't have any acting background, I would recommend not narrating it, because I would feel sad for an author to go through all of that work because it's extremely difficult, even for someone with an acting background, to do this. And be really disappointed with the amount of work that they put into it.
Oh, sure.
Again, I'm not saying it's impossible. I know a lot of narrators who are authors and authors who are narrators. But if you really want to do it yourself, the thing that I would also recommend would be to get a director for yourself. They will be able to help you and they can do it remotely. So like if you need to record at home in your closet or whatever, you could work with the director remotely, at least to get yourself started in the performance, because they'll be able to give you good advice and basically coach you through that. Or I would recommend paying for an audiobook performance coach for at least one session and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my book. Will you coach me and give me some tips on, how I can do this the best way that I can?
Sure. Yep.
And a lot of audiobook coaches are like anywhere from 100 to 200 for an hour. And I think that would be money well spent if you really, really wanted to do it yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That is so interesting. I am sure like working with a narrating coach, narration coach. Yeah. Is super helpful. But I'm sure it's really interesting too. Like,
yeah. Oh, I love it.
Things you learn.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
I was just saying, even now, like I still coach actively and I've been doing this since 2017.
Wow.
So yeah, you don't ever stop doing it. Like I just recently reached out to a fellow narrator of mine for coaching and basically it's just to say like, I don't ever want to get stale in what I do. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So then like how often do you do your coaching then? Like
it depends.
Every month or a couple times?
When I first started, I was doing it every month. I was finding different coaches and then working on what they, would give me, keep practicing that and continue to do that. And then as I went on, I was doing it with less frequency. And then last year I was pregnant and I just did not feel like doing anything. I did I'll more frequently I'll do accent coaching specifically. Actually. So if there's a new accent that I want to learn, I'll hire someone who specifically works with that, because
Yep.
you can try to figure everything out on your own, but it is amazing working with an accent or dialect coach,
Mm.
and what they can get you to do and understand how the accent works is
Mhm.
incredible.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
So normally when you do that, do you work with a narration coach that is like speaks that, with that dialect, or someone that speaks like you, but like has learned it and knows how to teach it?
Yeah. So there's several that I have either bought courses from or worked with directly. And
Mhm.
so like PJ Oakland is one of the main ones that I've worked with, and he is American, but
Okay.
he is also he's so good at what he does. Like he did all of the dialect coaching for the actors at Universal Studios in Hollywood for the Harry Potter parks, like
Wow.
teaching them, like that's what he does is
Oh,
just
wow. What a
teaching
job.
accents. And he's an incredible narrator too, but
Oh,
it's a very specialized skill, like to be
yeah.
able to just do accents. Like he's not the only one.
Okay.
There's plenty of dialect coaches specifically for that, and it's great.
Okay. That is
Mhm.
so interesting. And then, so you were saying then they end up giving you basically an assignment or something to work on.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
how does
the
that
the
work?
the coaching. So like um for example, like there was one time a coach gave me really good advice specifically about my diction when I was
Okay.
narrating. So it was, and this is nitpicky. So
Okay.
take it as you will. Not all coaches, like it depends on where you are.
Yep.
And so she was really it was really helpful for me because I was concentrating so hard on trying to make sure that what I was saying was clear and easy to
Mm.
understand. And I already have typical West Coast diction, which is very, intense. And she was like, chill out. Like, you don't have to focus so much on that, and just pay more attention to what your character is doing, what she's saying, what she's thinking, all of those
Mm.
things. I was concentrating too much on how my voice sounded versus just acting in that
Oh,
moment.
sure.
And so, yeah, it was really great. And so then that, you take these nuggets and try to apply them into your work and not forget anything that
Right.
someone told you to do.
I
So,
bet, I bet that's easy to, I'm sure it's easy to forget some of those things.
yes, it's easy to go back. It's habits, you form, practice makes permanent kind of a thing.
Right, right. That's a good way to put it. Oh man, that was so interesting. I just kind of geek out on like little details, and I had to hear more about that. So thank you for
Mhm.
diving a little deeper in that. That's really cool. Okay. And then so when it comes to like working with an author, how early do authors need to book with you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, it really depends. Like there are times that I have open availability and I could do a project with a pretty quick turnaround, but then
Okay.
there are times like right now where I'm booked out several months. So if someone came to me and said like right now, "Hey, I would love to can you do a book for me in April?" I would have to say no.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so yeah, it depends. So always I would err on the side of the sooner the better. So the
Okay.
sooner you can contact a narrator, the better chances you have of getting on their schedule. So
Sure.
especially because people think that they can't possibly get some of these like top tier narrators, that they're like, oh, there's no way. Like I couldn't possibly, contact this person or get a hold of them. But you would be surprised. We're
Okay.
all very easy to get a hold of.
Mhm.
And if you have enough time in your schedule and you can meet that narrator's rate, like
Mhm.
there's no reason that they would
Okay.
not be able to if it's something that they're interested in doing. But
That's
yeah, the
interesting.
sooner the better.
The sooner the better. Okay. So prep work. Do you do any prep work? Like what prep work do you do before reading an author's book? Like, I know that you said you don't annotate it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
would that be like highlighting it so that for each character and
Yes.
whatnot? Or what other prep work do you do?
Yeah. So for me, the prep consists of a preparation of the manuscript itself. So that includes a pre-read and then a listing of the characters, especially if it's fiction. So
Okay.
listing of all the characters and whatever descriptions that go with them,
Okay.
especially if it has to do with the way that they speak or the way that they look. If,
Okay.
he growled, he, said under his breath. Like if those things come up frequently, it ties into who that character is. And so I want to have those notes to to formulate who they are. If a person is always speaking quietly, then that tells me something about them as a character and as a person. And then if there are words that I don't know how to pronounce, then I will look those up and write those down. And so that way I have a list of them for when that word comes up, I'm going to go, wait, how do I pronounce that word? And I have it right there. And even then there are always words that I missed, because as I'm pre-reading, I'm like, oh, I know how to say that word. It's fine. And then I get there in the moment and I'm like, oh no, do I know how to say this word? Like, and there's certain ones like, oh God, I'm going to get in my head. Acetaminophen. I cannot read it if I see the word. My brain just stops, but I can say it out loud, like acetaminophen, no problem. But if it's on the paper in front of I don't know why. But
there's just some of those words where when they're written out, they don't look like how they're said, like I get that.
Wrong. they're not right. But yeah, so I will also look up words that I don't know the pronunciation for, or if it's something that I need to follow up with my co-narrators or the author or the production company on how they want me to say it. Some publishers and authors will give you the list, so I don't have to do that, especially if they're like fantasy words and things like that. Sometimes they say, do whatever you want. I don't care as long as it's consistent. But a lot of times authors have how those words are supposed to sound in their own minds, or like alien languages and things like that. So
I bet that would be difficult in different like fantasy alien type languages. I'm sure that would be difficult.
Yeah, there was one I did, it was like a Grace Goodwin book, I think, but she has a lot of alien races and they are pronounced not exactly how you would assume they're spelled. So they're like, the emphasis would be on not the way that we would normally speak it when you think of like American, words. So yeah, I had to have the list and make sure that I said things correctly. Wow. It's not what you would expect.
Oh my word. That is just, I can imagine that would get tricky and kind of like a little bit frightening at the same time.
It's fun. It's it's fun.
Good.
You don't want to mess up. That's the horror of saying like a character's name wrong. I did that once in a book. That I assumed I knew how the author would want the character's name to be said. And I was wrong. And their name was in the book like 100 times.
Oh no.
So I had to go back and reread whatever sentence had their name in it. Oh, it was, that was a lesson learned.
So when you did that, then did you have to like just basically read the sentence with the whole like the name in it, or could you just say the name and insert it, or no?
Nope, have to reread the sentence. So I had to go back and reread every sentence with that character.
That's so stressful, I'm sure, but good. I'm sure you're like never doing that again.
Yep, pretty much. That's what. And you'll see, like, there are times that every time a narrator, we get asked, do you pre-read the book? The biggest example is always yes, because of the sneak accent. And it's anyone who does not do it has not had it happen to them.
Oh no.
So,
well, that's a good thing then.
Yes, you have to. Otherwise, it will happen to you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's an interesting little story side note. So anyone that wants to be a narrator, make sure you do that. Perfect. Okay. And then, so are there any other things that you prefer your authors to give you that'll kind of help you do your job in a way of like, I don't know, I had talked to another one that was saying like, sometimes their author gives them like a Pinterest board or list, or
I love that stuff. You don't need to. I mean, it would not ever hurt. To like, the Pinterest boards are great. I would rather, if I could get anything from my authors every single time, it would be a character list with who the author thinks that person is, even if it's just one sentence about who that character is. And then including any words that they want pronounced a certain way.
Okay. Yeah.
If I could get just that from every author, I would be so happy.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are times, like, especially when I do reverse harem, like
Yeah.
I will almost always go find actors for each of the characters, because when there's so many dudes, I want to make sure that I'm giving them each individual personalities and keeping them straight.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the author already has that, cool, send it over. But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, I'm in my 30s and I don't want to stare at 18-year-olds for a week and a half. So usually I find them that I think
Yeah.
are people that are interesting.
Oh, that is so funny.
And
I love that.
so I'll do that.
And so that kind of just helps you then like get into the mindset of each
Yeah,
guy.
it makes them real.
Yeah.
Makes them, I mean, they're already real people when you're acting them, but it
Yeah.
just helps me give them a physical sense of
Yeah.
who they are. It makes them much sharper, because they're all different when you're narrating no matter what. But when you have this, like, this is this person, this is this person, this person, this person, to me, it makes it easier.
Oh,
So.
that's awesome. Yeah. And so I guess this just made me think of this other question, but so I know that you work with co-narrators, but do you also just like do like the guy and the girl like narration as well?
Yeah. So that has happened. The industry is kind of going away from that. Like, even some of my first books, I would read the male POV chapters. Like, there's some really early, even like Christina Lauren books, where Grace Grant reads both the male and the female POV. And I've done it in the past. But I have found, and I'm sure it will continue to be this way, that the readers don't like it. They want it to be a guy. And I'm even finding now, as time goes along, even when I'm doing third person narration and it's guy POV, girl POV, that someone will always leave some kind of review that's like, I really wish the male POV was a guy. And as a listener too, I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like, that's what I would prefer.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is something that the industry is really going away from. But a lot of times I'm doing first person through the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yep.
That's
really cool though. Like, I mean, I guess like, so like when their audiobooks sort of began, like they like you would have probably done like both, or the narrator would have done both, but now just moving away from that.
Yeah, especially romance. Romance has changed a lot in the last 5 years alone, as far as performance and the way that narration is done. If you listen to even just audiobooks in general, if you listen to one from 20 years ago versus listening to one now, it's so different, the performance expectations. And so, yeah, it always changes and it grows. And I think that's neat.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is great. It kind of becomes more of a performance then too, where it's like, it just adds a little extra something to it, kind of. That's awesome though. Really cool. Okay. And then, so what are some things that you believe authors should look for in their narrator?
Ooh, okay. I think, well, I'll start with a preface to that before I go into it. So the thing that is the hardest, I find, especially for authors and working directly with people who are casting their own books, is no matter how hard I try, I will never sound exactly like how they sound in your head. And you might not ever find that narrator. You maybe somewhere, it happens to be me that you're hearing in your head, as you go along. But I think if there's a little bit of a step back of, I'm going to find the closest thing I can to what I think this person sounds like in my head. Because as much as I would endeavor to try, I know I can't sound exactly like how you imagined it in your head. But I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure that I do my best for that character that you have written. And so I don't be afraid of trusting the narrator that you have chosen. If you have found someone who's professional, who can work within, your deadlines and has audio that they're providing that is up to your standards, then give them a little bit of faith in that performance element
Mm,
of your book and your characters.
sure.
But yeah, so that my soapbox, I'll step
Oh, no,
down now.
that's really good information.
But
So thank you for sharing that.
yeah, so when looking for a narrator for your book, especially if you're holding your own audition, so like
Mm,
say you want to put your own book up on ACX or something like that,
okay.
pick the most important scene to you for your audition piece.
Oh.
Um, and specifically choose audition pieces or piece that have the characters that are most important to you.
Mm,
So if it's a romance or, something where there's a villain and a hero and a love interest, make
mm,
sure that you have all of those main people covered in that audition piece, because then you will know right away. Like you won't get blindsided by, I love how this person did the main character and the love interest, but oh my God, like the villain sounded like they were 400 years old when they're not supposed to. And, it- you know,
yep.
ideally things like that won't happen. But if it's something that's super important to you, make sure to prioritize it and
Okay.
ensure that that is something that you have approved and like and agree with your narrator before they, get the green light to record your book.
Okay.
Because ideally, when you're working on ACX, you find your narrator and they will submit a first 15 to you. So it's 15 minutes of the book, and it doesn't have to be the first 15. You can even give the narrator what you want them to read for that first 15. I don't think enough authors take advantage of that, and they just
Oh.
let us read whatever we want.
Mhm.
I tend to try to choose something from the beginning, the middle, and the end for my
Okay.
first 15. So that way it's, we're covering certain points in the story that are
Right.
important. Um, and during that first 15 approval time is the time that you can make suggestions and find out if this narrator is truly the right fit for you.
Mhm.
And it's okay to decide at this point that the answer is no.
Mm,
So you can give them what you want for that first 15, you can give the notes. And then once you approve that first 15, the narrator's going to go and they're going to
okay.
record, and you cannot make any major changes or anything like that
Mm,
according to ACX.
yep.
You could try, but it would be fine and acceptable for the narrator to say, no, I already voiced this person in the first 15. You approved it. This is how this is going to
Mm,
sound. Um,
okay.
so understanding, and if you and your narrator have a good rapport and a good communication, like
Yep.
these bad things won't happen.
Mm,
But it's possible, and I know it happens.
mm,
So I don't want to pretend like it's sunshine and rainbows when authors get audiobooks made, because it's not always the case.
sure.
But yeah, and it's okay to take chances on someone new.
Mhm.
I mean, I was someone new at some point, but sometimes it's worth waiting until you can pay for the narrator that you want.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, there's
okay.
two sides to that.
That's really cool. And then you mentioned doing it with ACX. Do you also kind of also have like, I know there's Find Away Voices and
Mhm.
Google Play.
Yeah.
You also work with those as
Yeah, oh
well?
yeah. ACX is just a distribution platform. So,
Okay.
and it's one of many. So
Okay.
there's like Findaway, there's Spoken Realms, there's Audiobooks Unleashed, there's Pink Flamingo. Like there's a ton of different people that you can work with and
Okay.
distribute your audiobooks besides ACX. And
Okay.
a lot of them, it will still be on Audible. You don't have to only work with them, but it's Amazon. So
Yeah.
they're the
Sure.
beast. But yeah,
Right.
so that's just a place where you can do all of that. There's
Okay.
plenty of others that you can, you know, find
Sure.
narrators and work with them.
When it comes to like when an author is working with you, if like they find what is the process when it comes to like if there's tweaking the audio with something or little mistake and stuff or
Yeah.
something like those type of things, like how does that like how do you work with an author with that type of thing, like because I know I've heard many different things from different narrators, so I just wanted to see
Yeah.
how you answer that question.
Ideally, there should not be major issues if
Hmm.
I'm taking care of the audio for an author, because
Okay.
and again, this is me personally, so you need to understand what the expectations are from your narrator in that situation and what they're going to do. But as the producer, my job is to give you retail ready audio at the end of
Cool.
this if I am the full producer. Sometimes I'm working, when I'm working through a production company, then that's on them to make sure that this happens. But ideally, there should be little to no mistakes or anything that gets through. And so I'll have, like, if I upload all my files to ACX for the author and they listen back through, there's been plenty of times where we've missed something, like,
Sure.
because even with having a proofer, we're all human and
Yeah.
stuff gets missed. So yeah, if there's mistakes, I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix them because that's the thing. But if you're going to give me performance critiques or things like that, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Because it's that, like, if these are decisions that I made, and if an author really, really, really hated something and we were working through it and figuring it out, I mean, I could re-record portions, but I would have to be compensated for it.
Right.
Because we had an agreement and you want to deviate from that, that's fine. But if I have to take the time to go back and re-record, the best friend's voice throughout the entire book, then I have to charge you for how much time it takes me to do.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I will, but this is not ideal for anyone involved.
Right. Yep. No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. I am sure that there's a lot of kind of overreach sometimes where people want to dictate it exactly. And like you were saying, it's not, maybe you're not going to sound like the person's character exactly, so that's really good information. I think that every author should know. It's really good information.
And I've had authors give me examples, like when it was something they really wanted. They're like, this is the main guy. I want him to sound like this actor as close as you can without, mimicking that person. I'm like, okay, cool. I understand what you mean.
Cool.
And the same thing with the female characters. So you can do that if you've ideally, I want them to sound like this. Yeah. That's
a
fine.
really cool idea, actually. And kind of like the whole Spotify and Pinterest list, even sending snippets of actors or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they've sent me, authors send me interview videos, and especially when it comes to accents, they're like, I want it, I want an Irish accent, but I want it to be like this.
Cool.
Or, I want this character, but in this movie. And it's like, okay, cool.
Awesome. Well, that's just really cool. That I would have never thought of that. So cool. And so if someone is wanting to work with you, how would you best want to be reached out to? Would you want to be reached out through your email or how would you like to do that?
Anywhere.
Okay.
I have because I'm on pretty much every social media platform. But the easiest way to get a hold of me for actual work is through my email on my website.
Okay.
And my website is kelseynavarro.com, and I have my email and a contact form. So whatever is easier for you.
Perfect.
I have both on there. So
okay. Well, I will put all of that in the description below so people can find you. And oh my gosh, I just love this chat, and I loved chatting with you, and I love your shirt too. Are those cats?
Thank you. Yes, they're cats. Let me see if I can. They're wearing sunglasses.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, I've got 2 cats. And I love cats. They're so funny.
I love them so much.
Oh, they're just so cute.
I'm a cat lady with no cats. So
oh no. Yeah. Well, I like your shirt. They're cute cats. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. This was so much fun. And I enjoyed chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit more. So
have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.